and he'll switch this to you, I think, afterwards.
So I have
He said his volume was. Only one with paper. Who you with?
Houston Public Media.
Houston Public. See, some people go old school. I have my paper in here too. I keep my paper. You tell me when. Oh, Nick, we're not gonna give you a hard time. We don't want you to feel bad, Nick. You just standing between me and lunch. I'm Rodney Ellis, and I want to welcome you all here. Thank you for being at, I guess, Election Central until this is over with. I'm especially thankful to Harris County Elections Administrator Clifford Tatum and his team for their tireless efforts working on the front lines to protect our democracy. They're working around the clock to ensure that our elections are accessible and secure, and that every voter can exercise their right to vote. Now more than ever, we all have a stake in defending against voter suppression and election subversion. The late, great John Lewis once said, "The vote is precious. It is almost sacred. It is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have in a democracy." We're here today to make sure that voters are empowered with the knowledge and support that they need to use this precious, powerful tool of democracy. First, we want to remind voters that the deadline to register first we want to remind voters that the deadline to register or update your registration for the upcoming election is Tuesday, October the 11th. Voters can go to harrisvotes.com for more information on where or how to register. People can find applications at their post office or their library. Don't delay. Make sure you're registered to vote and try to do it today. Do not wait. We also want to make sure that voters who are eligible to vote by mail have the information that they need. I'm following my script because a new state law has been changed. I want to make sure that I'm complying with the provisions of that law. In 2021, Texas passed Senate Bill 1, one of the most restrictive voter laws in the nation, adding significant hurdles to the vote by mail process. Voting rights advocates raised the alarm that voters, primarily seniors and voters with disabilities, would be unfairly disenfranchised. They were absolutely right. In March of 2022, Texas experienced an alarming increase in vote by mail rejections. Over 12% of all mail ballots submitted statewide were rejected under the new voting rules, compared to 1% in the 2020 general election. That's according to the Texas Tribune. In Harris County, the numbers are even more alarming. The Elections Administrator's Office previously reported that 19% of mail ballots were rejected due to Senate Bill 1. By comparison, only 0.3, catch that again, by comparison, only 0.3 of mail ballots were rejected in Harris County in the 2018 primary elections. Harris County communities with large African American populations, like Precinct 1 that I represent, were 44% more likely to have mail ballots rejected, according to an analysis in the New York Times. This is unacceptable. It is un-American. Every voter has a right to vote, free from burden, harm, or obstacle. Harris County is committed to ensuring that every eligible voter is able to freely and cast their ballot. We're doing our part to fight voter suppression and remove obstacles where we can under the law. I'm going to now turn it over to our Elections Administrator, Clifford Tayton, to share what steps they have taken to address these issues. It's up to everyone, including the press. Let me say that again. It's up to everyone, including the press, to make sure that we defend and strengthen our democracy and make sure that elections are fair and accessible to all. When the right to vote is protected and elections are fair, democracy thrives. Please join us in getting accurate information into the hands of voters so no voter is disenfranchised and denied their right to vote. So I'm going to let you switch this mic out, and then I'll give this to Mr. Tatum. Back pocket there.
Appreciate it. Harris County, and I'm very excited to be here in Harris County and working with a professional team of election administrators who are conducting the elections for our residents and our voters. I look forward to serving Harris County, and I'm pleased to tell you that the election staff is actually moving the elections process in the right direction. We're very excited about the work that the team is doing, and we're excited about the turnout that we're seeing as it relates to the mail ballot voting. It's a little less than what we actually anticipated, but I think we're moving in the right direction. As Commissioner Ellis pointed out, the previous elections we saw a small decline or a large rejection in the number of ballots that were processed and tabulated on election night. And what we're seeing now is actually a fairly good trend in the terms of the applications that are being processed and the applications and the number of ballots that have been processed to be mailed out. To date, we've received over 66,000 mail-in ballot applications. To date, we've processed over 66,000 ballots to be processed through the mail and mailed out to the voters. Our voter education team is out in the field on a daily basis, conducting grassroots operations to explain to the voters how to request an absentee ballot, if they're requesting an absentee ballot, how to process the application, how to return that application to us, and then, of course, how to vote the ballot when they get the ballot at their home. As it relates to election preparations, we have over 99 early vote centers that will open for the November 8th election. Early voting begins on October the 24th and runs through November the 4th. We are encouraging all voters to turn out early. Don't wait for the last day, which is November 8th, to cast a ballot. You have the entire early voting period. We will have 782 polling place locations open on Election Day. We are training over 1,600 election judges, presiding judges, as well as alternative judges. We feel very comfortable with our training program. We've revamped that in several different ways that will allow our election judges to be more successful at the polling place on Election Day. But as the commissioner pointed out, we need all our stakeholders the media, our advocacy groups, our campaign groups, to get the message out. There's 3 ways for our voters to vote. They can vote by mail if they're eligible to request a ballot. They can vote early voting, and they can vote on election day. Don't wait until the last minute. Make your vote heard early. Commissioner?
Okay. Say that. Any questions?
Hi, welcome to Harris County. New administrator.
Yes.
You haven't had a great track record the last several elections in Harris County in terms of what's gone on with elections here, with problems with machines, ballots, etc. Have you done differently? What changes are you implementing to make sure we don't have these issues we've had the last several elections?
Thank you for the question. So the staff has, from the previous elections, embarked on a path to improve the elections voting process. So what we know we've done is we've added a small device to our Duo voting machine, which will assist the voters in inserting their paper ballot or their what we call a print voter record into the machine in the correct angle, so that we don't see the same type of paper jams that we saw on election day. We have revamped our training program to give our election judges more hands-on processing and setting up the machines and troubleshooting the machines to the extent that the machines encounter some problem on the election day. And we've changed the paperwork training a bit so that we're ensuring that our election judges know what to do with the paperwork as it relates to reconciling the votes and the number of voters that turned out on election day. Yes, ma'am.
What security measures are being taken to ensure voters are here ballots open to cast?
So security cuts across the board in a number of different ways. So we are working with an elections task force to ensure that security is what it needs to be during the early voting process and for election day. But we also encourage our voters to understand what their rights are, what their responsibilities are as it relates to casting a ballot, and arming our voters with the right information. What are they able to do at a polling location? Can they take a sample ballot into the polling location to speed up the process of casting ballots? So all of that factors into what the security footprint looks like on election day. Know your rights, know what your responsibilities and obligations are, and I'll repeat, show up early to vote so you're not standing in line on election day.
I won't your primary night, but I guess it was alarming for a lot of people, especially the 6,000 uncounted ballots that were found later on. What are you doing to ensure this time around, this election night, that won't happen?
Well, there's a number of protocols, processes, and procedures that's been put into place to avoid that type of issue from occurring again. And it becomes a matter of checks and balances, just a sanity check. Did we dot the I's and cross the T's? And I'm pleased to say that the things that I've seen the team implement and that I've seen take place during the logic and accuracy testing, which was here a couple of weeks ago, we're on the right track to ensure that that type of thing doesn't happen in this coming election.
Commissioner Ellis cited some alarming numbers, but if you look at the other numbers, we got much better. The primary runoff, the Democratic primary, 17% mail-in ballots were rejected. It went down to 6% in the Democratic primary runoff. The Republican went from 20% to about 10%. So the numbers improved. Why do you think the numbers are better? Is it because Texans are getting more used to SB1 and the changes? And what do you think needs to be done to make sure people that didn't go to the primary are doing it right for them?
So your question in many ways answers the question. Yes, because our residents have seen this process once, twice, 3 times, now they feel a little more comfortable about what it is they're required to do, and the grassroots efforts and the educational package that we put together. Our media team has done a fabulous job in creating what we call a toolkit to share with our advocacy groups and our campaigns, because let's face it, if our candidates are out campaigning for the vote, they should also be educating the voters on what they should expect and what they should see and what they're required to do in order to have their votes cast and tabulated correctly on election day.
Do you have an adequate number of elections workers? What is that number? Are you looking to hire more?
So we're always interested in recruiting more election workers than we currently have. We've recruited over 1,600. We need more. So if we have folks out there in the county that's willing and are able to work, we ask them to visit our website, harrisvotes.com, and to sign up to be an election worker. And it may be that we'll put you in a reserve status so that what we always know is someone won't show up on election day. So we encourage everyone that's willing to sign up to work, and we'll fit you into the program somewhere along the way.
You have 1,600. What number would you like to get?
So So 1,600 presiding judges, and that means presiding judges and alternate judges. Clerks gets to the number of 3,000 to 4,000 or so. So comfortably 6,000 workers is what we'd like to see. I think we're right at 5,000 or so. So maybe another 1,000 would be very helpful for us to identify reserves to the extent that we need them.
Can you tell people if they didn't vote in the primary, what's the biggest change they need to know because of SB1 when they go forward in this general election?
Well, so the biggest change relates to the methods in which you can vote. If you're voting by mail, then you certainly have to be eligible and you have to provide the required documentation and information in order for your application to be processed and in order for your ballot to be counted. And then, of course, early voting and election day. The educating the voters on what the requirements are is most important. And the election administrator has a finite amount of resources as it relates to grassroots efforts to truly getting the word out to all of our voters, which is why we rely on you, the media, and our stakeholders to continue the message beyond what you're seeing today. And so getting the word out is the most important thing that we can do. And it's almost a each one teach one. If you know 3 or 4 or 5 people, spread the message. Everyone is not going to listen to the news. Everyone's not going to watch Twitter, Facebook. So there's different avenues of communication that we need to exercise in order to get the folks to exercise their right to vote. Yes.
Can you explain more about the community events that will allow our voters to practice on the machines?
So thank you. So we do have an excellent outreach program, and we have roughly 22 voter education coordinators that are out in every Commissioner's Court precinct on a daily basis conducting outreach events. And those range from being conducted at the different recreation centers to county facilities to private facilities. And basically what's happening is our team is taking the actual voting machines out to those locations. We're conducting Q&A sessions, and we're allowing the voters to put their hands on the machine to process and to understand how the machine works. Now, that's a very good question because we're seeing a lot of virtual interaction with our voters, and virtual interaction is good as it relates to sharing information, but there's nothing like putting your hands on the machines. And we'll have videos that will be available on our website that will show the voter how the machine works. But actually putting your hands on the machines is really what we want our voters to turn out to do and to feel comfortable with how the machine works and what they're expected to do on election day.
Are you adding any additional polling locations because it's a midterm and it's expected to be such a high turnout election?
So we identify the number of 782, and that was, as you recall, there's 1,165 voting precincts, and so because Harris County is now what we call a county-wide vote system, that means that a voter can go to any location to cast a ballot. So you don't have to go to the polling location that's closest to your home or that's closest to your job. If you happen to be running to the grocery store, there's likely a vote center that's located somewhere close to any particular location that you're going to throughout the county. And you're able to stop there and cast a ballot. So we felt like 99 early vote centers was the right number for this particular election, and 782 is the right number for this particular election as well. So projections wise, and it's always dangerous to project right, so we prepare for the most and understand that if we don't get the most, then we're prepared for it. We're projecting approximately 65% turnout, might be a little higher than that. We see that 70% of that 65% typically turns out during the early voting process. So the 99 I think we'll handle, and the 782 would be more than plenty for election day itself.
Any others?
So you said, understood the process. If the mail ballots have been received already, are you finding a large rejection rate for those, or maybe look at them yet to see if there are issues that you're going to reject?
Thank you for the clarification. So we have processed 66,000 to go out in the mail, and the mail will actually drop this week, so that voters should begin looking for their ballots toward the end of this week, maybe Saturday or Monday. That'll give them roughly 30 days to review their ballot and to cast their ballot. And the voters should know that the Harris County has the largest ballot in the state. We have a 4-card double-sided ballot. It's a little bigger than what they're used to seeing, but that's because of the number of contests that are on the ballot itself. So voters should take their time as they're voting their ballot at home, is make sure they make all the selections, vote all the way to the end of the ballot. And on election day, voters should know that it's probably going to take a little bit longer to vote in person because the ballot is so large. But what do we want the voters to do? We want them to know who they're casting a ballot for before they get there. And they can go to our website and actually generate a sample ballot for their particular address, for their person, so that they can see all of the contests that's on their ballot for election, during the election process.
Anything else? I just want to stress again how glad we are to have Mr. Tatum here. I have been told that this is the longest ballot in the country. I heard you say it's the longest one in the state. You go fact check it. But if it is not the longest one in the country, it is one of the longest ones in the country. So I want to encourage you to encourage our citizens, go and vote early. The county has invested an unprecedented amount of money. I want you to hear an unprecedented amount of money to make sure that this process is as easy and it is as convenient as we can possibly make it. And we're complying with everything in the law. Whether somebody wants to vote DR, independent, whatever, go vote. Thank you all. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Take those mics off.